In this video, I talk about all the amazing changes that have been happening at Games Workshop and what it means to you and your hobby. So there are plenty of people out there who've been doing this longer than I have. Absolutely. And by this, I mean, Games Workshop. I've been playing miniatures games since before that. I started playing Battletech in like the 5th grade, but I got into Games Workshop stuff technically with Space Hulk in the early 90s when I was in college, but I didn't really start collecting stuff for myself and playing actual, Warhammer 40K until 5th edition, which was in the, I want to say late 2000s. However, there are plenty of new people coming into the hobby who maybe think that what's been going on the last 18 months at Games Workshop is normal operating procedure. And I can tell you right now here, and it's not. This is what's been going on. It's not normal. It's not what we veterans have come to expect. For the uninitiated, what I'm talking about here is it used to be that Games Workshop never wanted to hear anything from the people that buy their stuff. They had a forum, like a forum like you do on the web, and they closed it more than a decade ago. Sometime in the early 2000s, they decided, this is too much, and we don't moderate it very well, and people just complain because we never tell them anything, and we never respond in any way, and all this, and so they just shut it down. So here they are, a pretty major corporation, and shut it down. Now, you may say, yeah, that's cool, but then social media, rolled up a couple years later, and it was fine, and they were, tweeting and Facebooking and all that stuff. And you'd be partially right. Like, they had a Twitter, and they had Facebook for a while, and then they closed them both down. They literally got rid of their Facebook page. What they did was they decided, well, we'll make a Facebook page for each store individually so that you can ask your local store questions, which they won't be able to answer. But you can ask your local store questions. And what that did is it diffused the anger, because you couldn't go to the big national, Facebook page and say, what the heck is going on? You had to go to a bunch of them, and then only certain people saw them. And it was a smart move. Smart is maybe the wrong word, but it was a move, and it was the move that they took. And then sometime about a couple years ago, there was a guy named Eddie. So after all of the Facebook fiasco, they did end up having a Facebook group or page for their digital editions when they started moving into the world of ebooks and things like that through the iBooks, from Apple and Google Play and all that kind of stuff. They had a Facebook, thing set up so that they could talk about the Inquisitor Codex and, Kill Team back, this is 5 years ago or 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I'm not sure. I did a video about how impressed I was by the fact that people would go onto this Facebook page and this guy named Eddie would answer their questions, which was astounding. You can watch that video over here. Pachow. The long and the short of it is that was the fact that they had a Facebook page and people would ask them questions and a guy would answer it was, for those of us who've been paying attention to Games Workshop, astounding at the time. We were like, what? Have they been hacked? Someone is answering questions? That's not right. That doesn't make any sense. Now, fast forward a little bit to about 18 months ago, which is fast forward to 18 months ago. Anyway, so about 18 months ago, all of a sudden things started to change at Games Workshop. There was a new CEO. I don't remember his name. I'm not a newsman. But the old guy is gone. So there's a new guy, and things have started to change. They started getting back into social media again. They started up a Facebook page for 40K. They started up a Facebook page for Age of Sigmar when Age of Sigmar launched about 15, 16 months ago. It wasn't just for show either. Things happened there. People got questions answered, stuff like that. About maybe 6 months ago, they released a 40K FAQ, frequently asked questions, and a Sigmar FAQ on Facebook. They just put up JPEGs of all the questions and stuff like that, and everyone's like, why don't you make this a PDF? Why don't you make this a PDF so we can download it? Why are you making us download JPEGs of the new frequently asked questions? And they were like, oh, no, these aren't the frequently asked questions. These are what we've come up with, and we want your feedback and what you think. That's That's not normal for Games Workshop. That's normal for, most companies. But at the time, that was not normal for Games Workshop. Games Workshop was all about never telling you anything, not answering any emails for the most part, and only telling stores a week before a thing was going to come out that thing was going to come out. Now, generally, because store owners, many of them have things to do, like run a store, they don't have the ability to kind of surf the internet and find out the rumor sites. But all of the people who would come into their stores, who were into 40K specifically, they already knew it was coming because it had been leaked on different sites and the whole deal and all that kind of stuff. But store owners were all just like, oh, really? There's a new release? That's great, I guess. That's nice that I know that now. That's cool. But that was the way that they ran. And then things started to change. You started to see them putting out product and telling people about it, months out. We've all heard about Blood Bowl, which is coming out this month. We've heard about it like back when Warhammer World was this summer. Lost Patrol, a lot of their different board games, they've all talked about them and showed off images. Silver Tower was all over the place. Not only are they showing off that stuff, they're sending copies out to people in the, I don't want to say media, but those of us who kind of talk about them on the social media, the web and the YouTubes and all that kind of stuff. And speaking of YouTube, they've started their own YouTube channel, and I'm sure you've probably seen some of it. It's called Warhammer TV, and that guy Duncan, he does great painting tutorials, which is exactly the type of thing that they should be doing. They want you to come and buy their products, both the paints and the kits, and now they want to show you how to use it so you'll keep doing it. That's exactly what that stuff is for. That's what social media is for. That's what marketing is for. They actually are doing some marketing now. So all of this is in kind of response to some news that just came out over the last couple of days. They posted some stuff on their Facebook just recently, which, if you would have said that a year ago about Games Workshop, they posted something on their Facebook, people would have been like, what? But they posted something on their Facebook just recently saying that next week they're going to be making a new website. Now, this is not their own main website. Their own main website's working fine. This is going to be a new community site. It's going to be a community site for 40K, for Age of Sigmar, for Forge World, for Black Library, for Specialist Games probably, I'm sure, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, they had a forum that they closed more than a decade ago, so this is a big deal. Now, I don't know that this is necessarily going to be a forum, certainly, but it sounds like it's going to have a lot of kind of articles and things that some of the stuff that you start to see in like White Dwarf, and you're going to see these things on their website. But that kind of brings me to another point. In the last 3-4 years, they've redone White Dwarf a couple of different ways. There have been some graphical tweaks and things like that, but then a while back they decided White Dwarf was going to be very thin and it was going to be weekly, which basically meant it was a catalog. Here's the new stuff we're coming out with this week. And then they made something called Warhammer Visions, which was basically just pretty pictures of stuff that either they painted in studio or that they got pro painters to paint. And that was all it was. It came out once a month. It was like that thick, and it was like, I don't know, $20 or something like that. And it was just pretty pictures, literally just that. It didn't necessarily sell real well, from what I can tell. And now, about a couple of months ago, they decided to restart White Dwarf, their magazine. And now it's back to monthly again. And now it's got lots of kind of interesting and sort of useful articles in there, which is a great step in that direction. And the fact that they're now kind of even backing it up with this new community site, I don't know. I think it's going to be really good. But it's not the only thing that's also going on. Not just the community site, not just White Dwarf. The Start Collecting boxes have brought lots of new people into the game. The Kill Team box that I just talked about a couple of weeks ago. Pachow. That's another big thing that's bringing tons of people back into the game. Oh, well, the frequently asked questions, which I've talked about. The General's Handbook, that brought a whole bunch of people back into just Age of Sigmar, because Age of Sigmar was doing okay and it was coming up, but then when that General's Handbook dropped, and that General's Handbook was made with the help of the community. That's what happened, all right? The community kind of came forward and they talked to a bunch of podcasters and people who were running tournaments and stuff like that and said, what can we do? Because you guys have already started making point systems for Age of Sigmar, and then that's where that all came from. The majority of the point system, the matched play in General's Handbook, comes from a lot of work with the community, which is, again, unheard of. So, what's going on? Good things, as far as I can tell. Speaking of engaging, they're also working with some of the bigger tournaments. They've been doing live streams from some of these big tournaments. From what I understand, they're going to be at more conventions in 2017, probably at Adepticon, probably at LVO, that kind of stuff. So that'll be something that they just haven't done in years. I mean, sure, yeah, like for the last 3-4 years, they've been at, well, not really they. Black Library and Forge World have been at Adepticon, but Games Workshop is not exactly. From what I understand, probably coming up this year, you're going to start to see a lot more of Games Workshop at some of these events, and that's amazing. The specialist game stuff, like I said, Blood Bowl's coming out this month, and they've got more stuff coming after that. All the other types of board games that they've been putting out recently, which are kind of gateway games between here's a board game, but it comes with a bunch of cool miniatures, and you can use these miniatures in the game if you want to start heading in that direction. I mean, all of it is amazing to a person who's been kind of doing this for a while and watching how the company works, and a person who's, kind of in marketing sort of for his job. It's the way that companies work now, and they're finally starting to play catch up. And as the fact that they are the big 800-pound gorilla in our industry, it's got some pretty wide-reaching things that are going to get to pretty much every nook and cranny of our hobby, and it's going to affect all of us. Now, I don't think that this effect is going to be bad. I think that overall it's going to be good. If you're a person who's like, I am not interested in anything that Games Workshop is laying down, I'm not picking any of it up, I don't want it, I don't like it, that's fine. You're most likely playing a game that is probably something that's really started to build up in the last couple of years because Games Workshop was in such a sort of downward spiral, frankly. Malifaux, the models, the new plastic models, I talk about this all the time, that Weird is doing are amazing. You used to be able to say, oh, Games Workshop, they make the best models, but they have all these other problems. Well, you can't say that as much anymore. Anytime that, these other companies see a gap in the market, they see Games Workshop leaving money on the table, like literally, they rushed in. So now we've got all this new stuff going on. Privateer Press has got their new starter boxes because they've got, now for $40, they've got an in into their hobby. That's, you can buy a battle group box and start playing the game, and it's everything you need, and you can start playing now. You know what I mean? You've got all these different companies who are looking at, well, it looks like the Giant was sort of weak, so maybe we can start taking our shots, and they've kind of been bolstered and built up. So that's good for us as consumers. But now that Games Workshop is starting to finally get their, for lack of a better term, shit together, I think that it's still going to be good for us. It's not going to really bring a lot of these other guys down because they've had chances to get footholds, but now we're going to start to see, I think, some really interesting things coming out of like the big dog in our industry. They're even trying to move into other kind of venues. You're starting to see them showing up in like regular hobby shops with that Battle of Vedros, I think it's called. Don't quote me on the name, but it's these real simple snap-togethers that you can use to just build and have fun with, like a model airplane, but you can also use them because they kind of put some simple rules in the boxes, those kind of things. I don't know, it's a great time to be a tabletop hobbyist. Just board games are crazy, everything's going nuts that way. But even in our little niche of the tabletop hobby, I think that we're starting to see another renaissance, and I think that Games Workshop being the biggest dog in the pack and having them kind of get back on their feet again and get their head right and start doing things better, making apps, ebooks, actually talking to people, in the community. That's, I think, a great thing, and I think that it's going to help everybody in the hobby, including you, including me. And I think that we're probably going to be seeing some amazing things coming in 2017 and beyond.